Yeah, we're here with Fixing the Fourth Wall.
Welcome back to another episode of Fixing the Fourth Wall, where we pick the topics that we find most interesting in pop culture, politics, and religion. Whatever you're thinking about, we may be thinking about it too. I'm your host, Alan Lane, and
And I'm your host, Jesse Fetter. And for today's episode, we are going to be talking about what makes heroes and heroines heroic.
and I want to give a special shout out to all those firefighters, police officers, medical professionals, and military personnel out there in the world. You guys, by and large, are the real heroes, and you don't nearly get as much credit as you deserve. And this is my ode to you. But today, we're going to be talking about the fake heroes.
That's what I'm talking about!
The ones we see from the early 1940s or late 1930s, which became really the biggest icons in the world that transcended not just American culture, but also became global phenomenons such as Superman.
Batman.
You also had Green Lantern.
And then towards the 60s, we started to get the Fantastic Four, which is the first comic book family. And then, of course, Fantastic Four led the door open to one of the more iconic than Fantastic Four, Spider-Man.
Of course. Iron Man, Captain America.
Wolverine, which is more on the anti-hero level, but that's still a hero, it's just a subsection.
I mean, there's an abundance, a variety, a multitude. What other type of adjective or noun I can think of to describe all these heroes and list them? But what really makes them so heroic?
It's all about the money. It's all about churching.
I think part of it is obviously the heroic feats, is what they do, what they accomplished within their fictional realm. What have they done to set themselves above and beyond, other heroes? And I think a lot of what makes a hero is two basic things: courage and sacrifice. It is not easy to be a hero. It's not about like being fearless. It's more so how they react to fear.
Yeah, with Superman, for instance, his upbringing, he was brought up in a very small town in
Although Kansas,
good old Kansas.
which doesn't exist, by the way, I looked it up on a map. It's not real.
Dude, what the fuck?
And that modest kind of farm boy, upbringing taught him morals of self-reliance, hard work, diligent work ethic, modesty. And when it came time to represent not just the United States government and the United States of America, but also to be a defender of the human race, he had to really put that into perspective. He had to put it in place. Because in the beginning, he wasn't as accepted as he had liked. We just saw recently in Batman vs. Superman, even with his good intentions to save the world in Man of Steel, when he went, had that great battle with General Zod, there were some ramifications from his actions. But regardless of all the criticism he took, what I said earlier about that modesty, that humility, and knowing that his actions were done for the greater good, taking all the brunt of the critics and all of their negativity, that was one of his attributes that makes him such a very iconic hero.
And we will get more into the topic of what makes Superman iconic, but I think sometimes people often forget It's like, oh, because he's powerful, what is he sacrificing? He's not risking any danger. Sacrifice doesn't always mean you have to take a bullet for someone. Sometimes it's sacrificing parts of your life and things that you want to do. I mean, Clark Kent has always wanted to be Clark Kent, but he bears the responsibility of being Superman. It is something that he chooses to do, and something that he not always, if you see in the comic book, doesn't enjoy doing, but he tries to bring out the best in humanity. And to do that, you kind of have to be on the forefront, on the battlegrounds, trying to make your mark, to show people that there is a better way.
Yeah. And what that ties in, that segues into another attribute of his character, as well as many other heroes' characters, is self-restraint. Knowing that you have the power to end a fight in the ultimate finish, death. But knowing that that won't solve anything and that won't make you any better than the villain himself or herself.
I think who best defines that is constantly Batman. I mean, hasn't killed anyone. God knows he wants to. I mean, we can all admit that he's psychologically fucked up. But he shows constantly enough restraint to capture. Okay, maybe he beats them up viciously, and they may need facial reconstruction. But they are alive when Batman does capture them and bring them to the proper authorities. He recognizes that he's not judge, jury, and executioner. But he makes sure that he helps the police get the villains that they may not always be able to catch on their own.
In the movie, with the Red Hood, when I first introduced the Red Hood, which we learned was Jason Todd. Spoiler, but it's been out for years, so
don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, exactly. He said towards the end, Jason asked him while holding the Joker at gunpoint. He asked him,
What? What, your moral code just won't allow for that? It's too hard to cross that line?
No! God almighty, no! It'd be too damned easy. All I've ever wanted to do is kill him. A day doesn't go by when I don't think about subjecting him to every horrendous torture he's dealt out to others, and then end him.
Aw, so you do think about me.
But if I do that, if I allow myself to go down into that place, I'll never come back.
that's tying into that self-restraint, knowing he has the power, and while it would be easier to get rid of somebody, defining yourself and separating yourself from the very worst elements in humanity is one of the reasons that makes him the hero he is.
I mean, similar lines with Batman. I mean, not Batman, Spider-Man. I mean, it's one of the most famous lines in all comic book history. It's even popular now. With great power comes
Great responsibility.
and he exemplifies what Uncle Ben tried to instill in him. I mean, Spider-Man is a lot stronger than I think people give him credit for.
Yeah.
Those punches pack a wallop, and there's a lot of villains, the small-time guys, that he could kill with a single strike.
If you just look at the recent, Captain America Civil War film, it was Bucky that was kicking everybody's ass. He had a fight with Black Panther, he had going with Captain America, he had to go in with everybody else. And the first punch he throws at Spider-Man, teenage kid, he catches it, he's like, oh.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude.
And, Bucky's looking at him like, the Winter Soldier, this mighty Winter Soldier with superhuman strength and with a very powerful, mechanic arm, is looking at him like, you just caught my fist like it was nothing. Very underrated superhuman strength.
And what he always tries to do, and Spider-Man is not like Superman and Batman. He's hated constantly through the comic books. I mean, J. Jonah Jameson does not let up. Ironically, he works for the man. Spoiler if you didn't know that. But
as is a photographer. I mean, this guy goes out of great lengths to smear him. As this vigilante that's an outlaw, that's above the law. The same thing that Batman gets. And in the beginning, the same thing that Superman got. And at times, even if the public comes to love him, Lex Luthor will find a way to kind of drag his reputation through the mud. Which ties us into another point that makes heroes heroic, would be the ability to block out all the criticism, the ability to ignore the criticism, having thick skin. It's not just modesty, because modesty is not boasting or having to show off your power when you know you have it. It's the ability to adapt in very adverse circumstances.
It's the courage of your convictions.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Spider-Man, the things that he went through, and I mean, one of the things I think I like about Spider-Man is the fact that he started doing this at a young age. Like, if you stay tuned to like the original comic books, Spider-Man started being Spider-Man around 15. For a 15-year-old kid to have that level of maturity and to grow as an individual shows the type of character that he wanted to become, and the type of character that I think is what they're trying to relay in comic books. That you don't have to be a certain age to be a hero.
Yeah, and another quality that maybe we could touch upon with the Justice League, where all the characters have that, is leadership. There's a difference between being a boss and a leader. A boss likes to command people. A leader likes to gather people, take into what they have to say into perspective, and then with everybody's opinions or stances, go from there and find a happy middle ground. It's knowing how to lead and when to lead. And in the Justice League, who to lead. In the show, Justice League, and then obviously Justice League Unlimited, we got to see a lot of the heroes take turns in leading various missions and also change up their approaches, go with everybody else's different approach. It wasn't just singularly Batman or Superman that created the mission or the parameters or the objectives, even though Batman had mainly control freak.
I say we get that amulet away from him first. We'll split up and sneak behind him. The Lantern can do his thing, but no mores.
They all had to come to a certain understanding together.
Everyone got a chance to shine. It wasn't just Batman, Superman, even though those are and Wonder Woman, which are like the big three, the Trinity. I mean, they're kind of like the central focus of that universe. And even in the show, I think one of the best and shining moments was the Flash, when he started running around the world to defeat Brainiac / Lex Luthor.
There's a multitude of traits, guys. There's a tremendous amount of traits. In my opinion, probably the most important trait is, like you said in the beginning, which you touched upon it, but we have to really expand on it, self-sacrifice. Like we said with the quote, with great power comes great responsibility. A lot of these heroes had to sacrifice their personal lives and also had to give up mostly everything that they cherished in order to save humanity, to defend humanity, not just humanity, but also from a more microscopic or micro look, just their cities. You have
New York, which is like the home of Marvel, period.
Right.
I feel like everybody lives there.
Spider-Man,
The X-Men.
Batman, I think Metropolis is also in New York.
Yeah, it's like Metropolis and Gotham are kind of like split versions of New York, which we'll get into later.
Side note, guys, the origin actually from with Batman, the origin of Gotham actually was at night. It was modeled after Chicago, and by day, Metropolis is like New York City, but by night, Gotham is like Chicago. It's kind of interesting, but we'll get to that another time.
It's different forms of sacrifice. I mean, look at Wolverine, who is in a constant struggle between his animal bestial nature and his human side. And I think the worst thing for Logan is he hates, but he has to sometimes. And he has that He has that famous line. He's like, "I'm the best at what I do, but what I do isn't nice." And I think one of the greatest sacrifices he makes for the X-Men is there's got to be someone who's willing to kill people. There's got to be someone who has to give up and become an animal. And he doesn't like to do it, but to save everybody else, he'll become an animal.
Yeah. Another trait which makes heroes heroic, and I think our opinion we would both agree on, is corroboration. It's like I was talking about, it ties into leadership, but the reason I specify corroboration as separate, it's knowing how to work with people. It's not just taking turns and letting somebody lead the charge. It's working in groups in order to best solve an issue or a problem that a lot of these heroes face. A lot of them are loners.
Batman.
Yeah, Batman is a loner. You know, we've had also some anti-heroes which are very hesitant to really work with people.
Punisher.
I was just about to say, yeah, Punisher's a very good one. You also have some anti-heroes that don't fight for the greater good, that are just solely mercenaries, like Deadpool.
Who's hilarious and great, but I mean, sometimes he's one of those guys who crosses so many lines. Hero at times, anti-hero, villain, or just constant just pain in the ass, to be honest.
We've seen it so many times before. Yeah, he's a constant pain in the ass, that's for sure. Can't wait for the second film.
Cha-ching, cable.
Yeah. Wonder who's going to be the actor.
No.
But anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. I know we didn't touch on as many as you guys probably would have liked, but we'll make sure to bring you a second episode of other traits. Be sure to leave in the comments below what you think are traits that we missed or that we could expand upon in the next episode. And as I was saying, this is our conclusion. So with that, we are instant transmitting out.